Good evening, everybody. Sorry about that. Forgot to click the button. Thank you so much for being here tonight. It is good to have you here, and please bear with me as I lost my voice last night, so I sound like Barry White's daughter tonight. Want to say hi to everybody in here because you guys have been here for a little bit. So thank you so much for showing and wanted to say we have Netter tonight as our wrench, and thank you so much for doing that for me. And we're gonna have to get your channel going there, Miss Netter. So I'm gonna have to talk to you about that. But thank you for being here. And Miss Louise, Miss Connie, always good to see you. PJ lurking in the chat there. And well, that's Cardinal. He's backstage. And and G Force, thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. So tonight I'm gonna get started here because Latinos here. Polly, thank you. Yes, that's where I lost my voice on Polly's show last night. I'm going to bring on our guests so they can do most of the talking tonight because little, you know. So tonight we're going to bring on our guests here to help me out with our paranormal evening. And I have with me Mr. Cardinal Sin and Mr. Kamran Pasha. How are you?
Hello
Thank you so
there.
much for being here.
Lovely Maria, lovely Gil. It's an honor as
Good to
always to
see
be
you.
How are
on.
you, Cameron?
Good to
It's great
see
to
you.
see you. We got a lot of bright, shiny things happening in Gil's background.
I know, lots of
Oh, we got you as
flashing.
well. You've got some bright, shiny stuff.
Well, mine's not flashing though.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah, mine's not flashing. I think it's about the shiniest thing I have is my necklace. I just found this, and I thought how sad. I just opened it up and realized that I still had the thing from the.
The
It's not
previous
even.
owner?
Yeah, it's not even filled in yet. It's just there's I gotta yeah. Anyway, I like it, but and Polly is saying hi to you, Cameron, and
It's wonderful to see Polly.
yeah.
He's if those who are not subscribing to Latino Slant, it's one of the best YouTube channels out there. Please do.
Yeah, he is awesome. I loved being on his show last night, but so I'm still repairing from that one. We were singing our hearts out. Polly stood up and he was just going at it. He was just
I'll
dancing
tell
like a
you something
fool.
about Polly most people don't know. He is a hell of a dancer.
Yeah.
He's Latino though, aren't all Latinos born that way?
Well,
Don't you
possibly,
come
but
dancing out of the womb?
Yeah, we do. We just come bouncing out and we're like, "Ba-da!" We're here and we got maracas in hand. No, just kidding. No, we.
Lambada, the
Hello.
forbidden dance. Remember the lambada and lambada?
mariachi
Yes,
from
you know
birth.
that.
It's forbidden.
Right. That wasn't the umbilical cord my mama had, it was my microphone cord. But anyway, so, oh goodness, good to have you guys with us tonight to talk about some paranormal stuff here. Good to see everybody in the chat. And let me see, what do I have here tonight? And oh, sorry, let's go backstage. Okay. So, anyway, so I wanted to talk. I'm gonna have you. I was saying, I was gonna have you guys do most of the talking because my voice is kind of crapping out here. So I wanted to start with you, Cameron. One thing that you've been on here a few times. We've talked. We've had some great subjects. We've talked about so many things. And one of the things that we haven't had a chance to talk to, I'm hoping to get to tonight, is some of your experiences with your. I think you've gone ghost hunting with some people,
Yeah.
and I, wanted to see if you had anything from there that you were able to share with us.
Sure. I mean, do you want me to just jump right in? We
Yeah,
can.
just jump right in while I rest my voice a little.
Oh, absolutely. And well, let me start with how I got even into this world of paranormal.
Yeah,
And I've always
absolutely.
been sort of interested in otherworldly things. That's why I've been interested in religion. I was a religion major in college. I studied all the world religions because I was always. I mean, you could argue religion is paranormal. It is beyond the normal of experience, right? And so I've always been interested in that. The first experience that I can recall that I would call paranormal in the way that we talk about it culturally today was when I was in junior high school. So I would have been about 13, so probably seventh grade, let's say. And I was in Brooklyn at the time, lived in a immigrant family, lived in a small little apartment that was 5 people. You Latinos know this. The 5 to 10 people in one little place. You know this, right?
In one room
Happens
together.
with Jews in Brooklyn too.
Well, it's old school. It's old school Americano. It's a little house on the prairie in one apartment.
Right.
So it was this little apartment. I'm actually going to describe it to you because it affects the story, right? So it's this little apartment we had in Brooklyn that was one bedroom for 5 of us, right? And so there, when you walk in, and there's the main living room, and it's like a T. So you walk in, there's a living room, and at the end of the living room, there's just 2 ways you can go. It's if you turn to the right, there's the bathroom, the one bathroom all 5 of us shared. If you turn to the left, there's the one bedroom we all shared, right? And back then we thought it was normal because that's kind of is when you're struggling. That's the joy of America. It's normal. So that's it. Little space, maybe 300 square feet, maybe 250, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And lots of chicken tikka masala in that.
Yeah.
It's good. So I was 13 years old. Come back home. For some reason there was a half day at school, maybe some kind of holiday. Who the hell knows, right? Some half day at school. So instead of coming home at 3:00, I normally would. I come home at like 12, right? And so I come back, and for whatever reason, I have an older sister and a younger sister, and for whatever reason, their schools didn't have a half day. Who knows what was going on, right? And both of my parents are out working because that's the immigrant thing, right? You don't see them. They're the latchkey kid generation. So I come home at 12, and I've got my latchkey, I got my key to come home, and I don't expect anyone to be home because my sisters are in school, my parents are working. So I come in, and there's a child standing in the center of this little living room that we've got, and its back is to me, and it's got short black hair, and my little sister was at the time, I'm 13, so she was about 8, right? And so it was about like an 8-year-old child size, and it was wearing a tan sort of flowing clothing, and which I assumed was my sister. She was wearing a shalwar kameez, which those of you that are watching Ms. Marvel, any of you are not, actually good show, surprisingly a good show. But the shalwar kameez is the dress that the characters are all wearing because that's what we wear at home, right? And so I thought that was my little sister, right? She had short hair at the time, and so her name is Shaheen, and I was like, but she's 8 years old. She shouldn't be home alone. Even there were rules. The latchkey kid, the older kids had to take care of the younger kids, right? You can't have your 8-year-old sister home alone. What is she doing home alone? So I called out to her. I said, Shaheen, what are you doing here? Are you okay? Well, why are you here? So child is standing there. I'm not looking at it from the side, straight on. There's a physical child there, right? No, it's not a phantasm. It's my sister. So I call out, and it's just standing there perfectly still. And when I call out to the child, it runs forward very rapidly, and then turns right into that T, into the bathroom. I'm like, why is my sister acting like a weirdo? What is she? And so Shine, what are you doing? So I run after her, and this is like 5 seconds. It's a little place, right? Run after her, turn, and go to the bathroom. There's nobody there. And I froze, and my heart was like, this wasn't out of the corner of my eye.
Right.
It wasn't like a brief thing. This was I interacted with this thing. I called out to it. This was at least maybe like 15-20 seconds of direct staring at it, and so this was, and I was like, what the hell just happened? So I'm looking all over this little apartment we've got. There's nobody there, so I'm really freaked out, right? So my family comes home later in the afternoon, and I tell them, and they're all like, oh, you just imagined it, you just or whatever. I was okay. But I knew I had seen someone there. So later, as I got older, I realized that what I was looking at, the child wasn't wearing Pakistani shalwar kameezes like Ms. Marvel. It was actually a moccasin type thing. It was Native American type of clothing, right?
Oh,
okay. I realized, right? Because again, these traditional cultures, and you just don't always. I was like, so it was, as I would later see images of Native American children in television movies, that's what they were wearing, right? And so that story start me on my I just had a ghost experience or paranormal experience, right? So I'm going to jump forward now 30 years later. So a few years ago, my older sister, who's now a professor at Penn State, right? And she told me, she said, my younger sister, one I thought was in the room, and she said to me, I saw the kid too. I would see the kid in the apartment, and I didn't tell you because it would scare you too much. But she said I would be, working, on homework, and I would look up and the child would run and do the same maneuver. She said it would run from the living room and turn and go into the bathroom, and it would disappear into thin air as it turned into the bed. It's clearly some kind of residual thing, perhaps, right?
It's called the stone tape theory.
I want to hear the stone tape theory. I think I know what it is, but let's hear it for the audience.
The stone tape theory alleges that a crystal or granite records activity that occurred, and then it plays it back later. But it's always the same maneuver, like you were saying, going straight and then taking a left. So that's the stone tape theory.
Like a recording,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's no interaction,
No, it's not even sentient. Allegedly, it's just there.
Yeah, and so there's like this, certain kinds of stone we do know record information. Quartz. We use quartz now in all kinds of quantum mechanics, engineering, and we can use it to record data. It's useful for holograms, and so the idea that every hologram, if the universe is just one big hologram, which is one thesis, right? That is something that a quartz can do. And who knows what the hell was the stone in the area, but definitely that opened the door for me to realize that I could have a direct personal experience. It wasn't because I was already reading books on like ghosts and the house with a clock in its walls, which was recently made as a movie. It was my favorite book as a child, John Bellairs, if anyone hasn't read it. My little sister who actually loved that book so much as well, she wrote the author and he wrote her back. It was her childhood pride that he said, "Oh, I thank you so much for your nice comments," and she kept the letter, right? But it's a really wonderful and scary, it's a really scary book. It's scarier, I think, than the movie they made, right? It's a child's book, but it's about these children that discover there's a ghost and there's a clock that's in the walls. It's ticking. You don't know where it's coming from, but it's essentially a doomsday clock that if it's activated, it'll bring the dead back to life. And it was a very scary book.
Wow.
But so I've always been into the paranormal. So now let's jump forward many, many years to maybe about, it was my, when that show Ghost Hunters was on, Ghost Hunters, when that first came on, I really liked it. That was a revolutionary show. We really hadn't had since maybe like the 70s. We had In Search Of. Those people remember that for those of our generation. Yeah. Right? They had that was Spock. He would actually narrate that, and actually some of the great paranormal, I think, but that's 70s. You hadn't really seen, but you had never had this. And in many ways, they were honestly, they were inspired by Ghostbusters, right? That they basically were a bunch of these plumbers going out and trying to, find and catalog ghosts using modern technology, which is what Ghostbusters is about. And so that show, I really got into it. I was obsessed with it, and then it spawned all these other shows. Like now that there was a Spawn show called Ghost Adventures that came off of that. That's still on the air. Like a top show on Discovery Plus, right? Yeah. It's still on the air, like 15 years later. So that created a whole phenomenon. I was into it. And then those guys know how to make money, right? And so those guys started monetizing that by setting up basically a travel company where you could go with them on ghost hunts. Like, and they would organize it that fans of the show could come to some of these famous places, and you could spend a weekend ghost hunting with them. So I was like, oh my God, when I heard about this, I was like, I got to do this, right? And so the very first ghost hunt I went on was with those guys, from Ghost Hunters at the Stanley Hotel in Estes, Colorado, which some of you may be familiar with. That's a hotel they covered on the show, but it's all very famous because that's where Stephen King wrote The Shining. Right? He had so many strange personal experiences in that hotel.
Where it was set.
And I actually ended up staying in his room. It was actually arbitrarily given to me. It was just assigned. I was like, oh, this is the room Stephen King stayed in, right? I was like,
as an aside, I happen to know.
We were going to investigate that room. I was like, no, you can't be there when we investigate. I'm like, this is actually my room.
I happen to know the guy who, as a kid, his mom was the manager of the Stanley Hotel in the off season, and he rode his big wheel around in it. And I think Stephen King saw that. Somehow he knew about that.
Yeah. And well, the thing is, if you remember, obviously, the most famous thing of the book is those two little children, right? The baby book, right? And so what's interesting about the Stanley Hotel is that it does seem to be haunted by children in particular. So this answers the very first paranormal experience I had with the Ghost Hunters. In fact, I'll find it while we're talking. I'm going to find it. I wrote about this in the Huffington Post.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Right for the Huffington Post, when I guess before they said I wasn't as woke as they needed me to be. And so right there. But I wrote for a few years for the Huffington Post, right? And I wrote this article for the Huffington Post about my experience with the ghost hunters. So I'm going to post in the chat in a moment after I tell the story.
Oh, okay.
But this is what happened there. So that place in particular is very haunted by children, and the basement. So the basement is interesting. Now this goes back to Gill, what you're saying about rock, recording theory and all of this, right? And quartz. So the mountain it's based on is built on quartz. We talked about that when we were there at the event. They had all kinds of little seminars and stuff. And so there's a lot of interesting phenomena that the Native Americans, everybody prior to the building of the hotel, said was happening on that mountain. So this hotel is built into the mountain, as in physically built into it, as the foundations of the mountain stone, right? And so the actual basement, when you go down to the basement, one wall is the mountain, is the actual mountain, right? There's no concrete there. There's stone. That's the mountain. That's the wall. So we went down there, and that's one of the most haunted places, and that's where I had my first experience, because it was famous on the show. On the show itself, they went down to that basement, and they interacted with a child ghost. And it was the first time they actually had like a thing where a child actually talked back to them. So in the show, there's a famous moment where they say, "Hello, anyone down here?" And a voice on the show comes echoing out of a little girl saying, "Hello, who's there?" Like it's actually talking to them. And so they're like, "Oh, that might have been faked, right? That wouldn't have been faked." That happened to me. So I went down the basement and I called out, and the child called out back. And there's just the stone wall. It's coming out of the wall. Out of the stone of the mountain, right? It's this echoey child's voice. I captured it on my recorder, and it's like it's very clearly audible. You're not imagining it. It's someone you think is in the room that's just not there, right? And so that basement, if anyone ever goes to Stanley Hotel, that basement is you will capture actual evidence, and it will shake you up. And since then, I've been to Stanley Hotel maybe 4 times, right? And each time I've had strange experiences in that basement, right? And so there is something there. And I've been on many more since. The one other one I'll share with you, and then I want to stop talking to
I actually don't live too far from the Stanley, so
you've never been there? You got to go.
I know I've never been there, but I want to go.
I'll go. It's next door to my state.
Maybe you guys get together, go. Maybe I can join you. But no, for a while, it's interesting because for a while they cashed in on it. The new management came that didn't like the Ghost Association, so they stopped doing that, stopped promoting it. And then they lost all this money because people stopped coming to the hotel, right?
Yeah, it's ghost tourism.
Exactly. That's a lot of money for them. And so in the last 3 years, I suddenly noticed there was like a period of like 4 or 5 years where there was I used to get emails from Stanley Hotel, and then it stopped having any reference to ghost hunts. They stopped hosting ghost hunts. They didn't like it. I think so, because I never was invited again. I mean, they didn't hear about them anymore. And then the last 3 years, like obviously the lockdowns affected that. But in the last 3 years, they started redoing ghosting because they were losing money. Because
I mean, that's what it's known for. I mean, I think Stephen King made that famous, and there's still people all the time that go, and they always have events during Halloween and stuff, but it's really expensive. I mean, it's an expensive place to be, but I would like to go sometime,
it's a rich people place, but it's worth saving up and having like a fun trip once a year.
This is a bit tangential, but I have a question for you, Cameron. Have you seen Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining?
Yes, I liked it very much. I actually thought that was a well-done sequel. I mean, it's never going to be at the level of The Shining, but I think they achieved what we were criticizing. Remember, it came out at a time when we were all going like, all these sequels suck. They're always trying to reconstruct the story, deconstruct the story. And this was very much honoring the original. And, it was honoring both the original novel, which is very different from the Kubrick movie. It was honoring the novel and the Kubrick movie. It managed to do that. And it did this passing of the torch thing where Ewan McGregor is playing the little boy now grown up, and you have this young black girl who's got The Shining, right? And he passes the torch to her in a way that's really respectful. This was right after like The Last Jedi. We saw poorly done passing of the torch, right? And this was like how he basically, his story arc with his family is concluded, and then the torch is passed on. He's the mentor to her throughout the movie, and then at the end they could have had sequels. Ultimately didn't do very well, but they could have had it, and it would have been.
I thought it was a brilliant movie. I loved it.
It was scary.
It was, and I was glued to the screen. I was on the edge of my seat. I saw it with a friend of mine in the theater, and it was so immersive. It had that verisimilitude where there was no unwilling suspension of disbelief. I was just in it,
I don't know if you saw the hotels tend, I guess because there's so much that happens throughout the years of hotels that there's something bound to happen, and and they make movies out of it. There's one I saw called The Innkeeper. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, it feels like I've heard of it though.
It actually creeped me out. I think the ones that are more intense are the ones that make it more realistic, where they don't have all this music. It's just quiet type
Oh,
thing.
well,
Where,
that's the creepiness, because in real life, when you have a scary experience, there's no music in the background.
there's no music. You're like, if there was music, I'd, yeah.
And it seems to me like in horror movies,
Yeah.
mostly when something is happening that's paranormal, like a ghost or something like that, usually the music stops. Or if it doesn't, it's much reduced. It's not as present,
Yeah.
so that the effect of whatever they're showing will be more.
Well, Hitchcock
central.
understood it. Hitchcock said it brilliantly. He said the scare is not the boo. The scare is the lead up to the boo.
Right.
The boo is the release.
Right.
And so the
Right.
music is part of that, the lead up, right? It's when in the horror movie, when you're watching a Halloween movie, and it's the scare of the music builds up that he's Michael Myers is somewhere in the house, right? You're about to enter the room where you think he's in, and then the music stops. He's not there. The music stops. You breathe, and that's when the boot's gonna happen.
That's when the bruise happen. I remember when I was younger, I was really terrified of the. Okay, I'm going to admit this. I was kind of scared of the dark a little bit.
That's okay. That's
No,
not.
for
I
good
think we
reason.
all are.
But
That's not human. That's instinctive.
That's
I
standard,
remember
yeah.
that. I remember when I would come out from the basement. I just like in the movies, everything leading up to it is more intense because I was always afraid that somebody was going to grab me or touch me, and even turning out the light, I would just do it really fast because I was always afraid that they were going to grab my hand and hold me and keep me down there, and that was intense until you finally got to the end and you're like, okay, nothing happened, I'm good. But I think that's what makes a movie.
That's the tension that happens in storytelling.
Exactly.
In ghost stories, in movies like Halloween, and just like Cameron was saying, you've got that tension that builds up with the music, and then the music stops. You get that breath moment, and that's when the scary part is over. It's the buildup that's scary that creates that tension.
Well, I actually want to reference what you said about the fear of the dark. It is primordial. It is instinctive on a human natural level. Obviously, the dark is where we can be attacked by predators. We can fall and hurt ourselves. I mean, the dark has practical things, but there's a metaphysical element to the dark as well that's real, right? And I always speak from my spiritual tradition, and so in Islam, the second to last chapter of the Quran, there's 114 chapters. The 113th chapter is actually a prayer against evil forces or supernatural forces to God to protect you, and it's specifically a prayer against the darkness when it spreads. It starts off with that.
Oh, wow.
It says about how you're asking God to protect you from the evil of the darkness as it spreads, and then from the evil of these other forces, including it references black magicians, it references occultists, right? But the prayer starts off with the darkness, right? And so because it's not, there's something on a spiritual level that's part of the test of this material world, that the night has a danger to it. It's not just that there's physical dangers, there's metaphysical dangers.
It is funny how everybody turns religious when they're scared. All of a sudden they're like bringing out the prayer beads and everything. It's just this fear does something to us all.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to there's no atheist in a foxhole, literally. Like
Right.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
everyone believes in God when their life and their soul is at stake. At that
There are a
moment,
lot of
the medical comes
experiences. There are a lot of experiences in both the paranormal, like with ghosts, and in like abductions, where people will call on Jesus Christ, for example, or call on the divine, and then whatever's happening will go away.
Yeah.
Happens very often.
Even in dreams, I've dreamt that too, where
you were able to use a spiritual invocation in a dream to stop something.
I've had nightmares that felt so real they were really happening, and I'm just like, okay, I don't remember my prayers now. I'm gonna remember it now because
I've had the same too. I mean, automatically there's certain Islamic prayers that are used to summon angels to ward off sin, right? And even I'll do them in real life, and in dreams. When something, they come out of, even in the dream version of me, will start reciting those prayers automatically. Because maybe this will add to the conversation. Because I'm going to suggest to you, dreams are not dreams. I would suggest to you that they are accessing other layers of parallel universes that are real, right? And I think there's more and more
think so.
conversation about that. Dreams are not just, because we can't explain dreams. Scientists can try to understand. They don't really understand where they come from. Certainly, when lucid dreaming was accepted as a real phenomenon that they've now been able to scientifically verify, that people are able to have lucid dream become conscious in them. That's now been scientifically verified through testable experiments with people in sleep. Right, we're able to communicate from the dream state to the person. And so they can't figure out where they come from because they're not coming from anywhere. It's us going
And you're talking obviously about something beyond the subconscious.
Yeah, I mean, well, what is the subconscious? Right? I mean, that's a term that we're using, but it's all of our traditions have had this concept that consciousness has many layers, and that the layers essentially move out from within ourselves, in the sense that there is a consciousness of who we are, which is the most surface level consciousness, what we would call the ego consciousness, or and then there's this, what Jung in modern Western culture called the collective unconscious, right? There's what we could call the subconscious, which is our
the
personal
Akashic record.
Right. Yeah. So we have our conscious self, then we have the subconscious self, which is the thing that's making we can't consciously make our heart beat and make our body do all of its processes. That's just happening. And the idea is the subconscious mind is doing that. And then that's just personal conscious and subconscious. And then Jung said that there is this collective unconscious where we all share one mind, which is why we all have similar ideas and similar stories and archetypes, right? And so none of this is new. Jung just packaged it for the modern materialist world, right? But this is all, you go back, ancient Sufis, ancient Buddhists, they would all told you this, 1,000 years ago, right? It's not new. It's just we threw all the baby out with the bathwater with our scientific record to rediscover it.
Well, there's even ghosts in dreams, though, because I mean, I've danced with Elvis Presley and I've chatted with Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, okay. Well, Elvis is coming. That's what I'm going to after our session today. I'm going to go see Elvis with one of my best friends.
I heard it was great.
Nice.
The trailer looks incredible. The trailer. I mean, there's
I saw
apparently
that.
there's a 4-hour version, and they had to cut it down from 4 hours.
Oh my gosh! I want to see it. It looks amazing. I loved the trailer.
Well, I'm going to see it tonight with a close friend of mine. Then tomorrow I'm taking my mom to see it. And she's from that generation where Elvis was a thing, like 60s, 70s, and so, but she didn't know much about him. So I actually got a really good biography called, I think it's called Being Elvis, Becoming Elvis. Again, I'll find that in the chat. But it's a really good biography of him, and I've been reading it. There's all this stuff I didn't know about him, and then my mom's reading it. And she's like, "This guy's incredible." I had no idea what an incredible person this was. I mean,
he pushed boundaries on so many levels.
And he was a normal guy, and he was a religious guy, and he was a taking care of his parents kind of guy, and it's a really interesting character. And his journey was tragic, but this guy, even Grace Randolph, who we all know, who does the movie critiques, I watched her watch the first trailer, and she was like, "This is gonna suck, this is gonna be a joke." And watching her do the trailer review live, she starts crying in the middle of the trailer. You're like, "This is going to suck. It's going to be a joke, right? Nobody cares about Elvis." And then a minute later, she's crying with tears and saying this is going to be Oscar worthy, because that's the power of this film, apparently.
So have you seen the connection between the two subjects that we're talking about?
Well, did Elvis have a paranormal element from that?
The ghost of Elvis.
Okay, tell me about this. Obviously, people have been claiming
several people that visited Graceland have taken photos through the open screen door, and Elvis's face is in it.
Wow, Robin,
I've heard that quite a bit.
Yeah, well, you've actually interacted with him. Again, you went to another universe. I think you actually met him.
Probably, yeah.
Of course, he gets a chick in every universe. Every universe he gets a girl.
All we did was dance and sing together.
I promise.
That's all you need to say in public.
That's all we did. But me and Marilyn Monroe
would do a lot more than that. I promise you.
I tell you what, though, we had a real good time. You know what I'm saying?
I live near her grave in Westwood Memorial Cemetery. Right, I go regularly there. I was there just a few days ago to celebrate the anniversary of her birth. Right, and I got a thing for Marilyn. And that's why
I do too, in a good way. Sometimes she just is in my dream, and we don't interact. But she walks by and she waves at me. It's like, "Oh, you're not going to be in my dream today to see you saying bye."
She's going over to Cameron's dream where they're going to have fun.
That's right.
I respect you, Norma Dean. I see you for who you really are.
Right.
I
No,
love you
I
for who
love
you
those
are. I like everyone
dreams.
else who loves you.
It's
But I'm saying that this trailer for this new, I was very skeptical about this new Marilyn Monroe movie that Netflix is doing. They made the whole thing, it's NC-17 or whatever. Anna de Armas, right, who's playing it. But I gotta say, this teaser trailer was like the Elvis trailer. It's on for like 30 seconds, and it blew me away. I mean, our
yeah.
friend Paulie did a review of it live, and I mean, she's the most. Just in that 30 seconds I saw, she captured Marilyn, but more importantly, she captured what Marilyn is, which we're going back to. It always happens on your channel, Maria. We always do these circles of come full
I
circle.
know we do. I love that.
So we're going to go back to Jung and the collective unconscious, right, and archetypes, because they show in that trailer Norma Jean isn't Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe is an archetype, like Venus or Aphrodite. She's not a physical being. Norma Jean, and Norma Jean herself said it. She channeled Marilyn. Marilyn was something bigger than her that would come into her and become that, and then leave her. Right?
It's a walk-in.
There's a great story that I read about how one of Marilyn's friends. She was talking about how when they were at the height, like in the early 50s, the very height of her exploding into the world fame, right, when she had become Marilyn Monroe, that she and Marilyn were walking down the street in Times Square. Or she and Norma Jean, I should say. She and Norma Jean were walking down the street in Times Square, and they were just dressed normally, like girls in the 50s, whatever. And she's like, "No, wait, nobody's noticing you. You're Marilyn Monroe." You walk out, she's like, "Oh, I'm not Marilyn Monroe. Would you like to see Marilyn Monroe?" And then she said she turned, her body language shifted, and she became Marilyn. And seconds later, a crowd surrounded them.
Well, she was a leading actress, but...
Yeah, but I mean, look, but that's what acting is. Acting is channeling. Anyone who's acting. Yeah. That's why one of the things I really got upset with all the things that we in the fandom have been upset with, how, we get upset with what's been done to our fam culture, which I think is improving now. But we've been upset with a lot of actors saying a lot of political blah, 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 blah. And then as a result, we start disrespecting acting as a profession, right? And I shut up and get on stage. No, you don't understand what acting is. I've taken acting classes.
It's a craft.
It's a craft. It is hard. And it is really something when I see a good actor, like in acting class I've taken, when I see someone there, you're like, you see an interdimensional shift happening. You see the channeling. Like, this isn't human what you're watching. Right? And so I respect that. And then, again, that's the vessel. And afterwards, the thing is gone, and the person goes off and says dumb things about politics. And that's the crap. Let them say whatever they want.
Right? Sometimes they have a hard time getting out of that because of the actor who played the Joker, right?
They killed him. They killed him.
Joaquin Phoenix?
No, it was
Ledger.
Keith Ledger.
I
read an article on that. I was like, dang.
And I believe that, because you're letting this kind of darkness, you're letting the dark archetype into you.
Right.
It is a form of intentional possession. That's what acting is, right? When it's done properly, when it's not just someone thinking they're acting, which I think a lot of it's critics of actors, like, it's like all these people are criticizing this and that show and this and that movie. It's like, let's see you write something. I write. So when I criticize something, it's coming from a place where I know the person was lazy and was capable of doing better. You can't do it at all. So what are you talking about?
That's why I don't say anything. I'm like, I couldn't do any better. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
It's interesting. The last time the three of us got together, I mentioned that several times when I've been writing, I just start writing and something is writing through me. And I finished... 10,000 words, and I was kind of like, and
you're
absolutely something was writing through me. The muse, whatever you want to call it, the divine, and it's the same situation with acting.
It's because if you look at some of our earliest books we have preserved in human civilization, if you looked at the Iliad, how does Homer start off the Iliad? This is 2,800 years old, 3,000 years old. How does Homer start off the Iliad? He starts off with praising the muse and asking the muse to guide his tongue, right? Because he ain't telling the story of the Iliad. It's the muse telling it, and it's coming into him. The Greeks understood. What people don't understand about Greek mythology is that they understood they were talking about archetypes. They did maybe the average person did, but Plato and Aristotle understood it, and Socrates understood it, that the Greek gods weren't beings on a mountain. Well, maybe they are. We talk about ancient alien theory, but what they were archetypal energies, that represented consciousness. That's why, Eros.
Different facets of the human consciousness, yeah.
Exactly. That's what the words they use. I mean, it's fascinating how we see like, memory is the daughter of this goddess, and you see. So what is the connection between memory and this goddess representing
You
this
even have
artifact?
Janus, the two-headed god.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the Greeks understood they were talking in archetypal terms. That's why they invented modern theater, because they were channeling archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
Very
I'm going to
true.
say real quick, I'm going to say, hey, to those who came in. Oh gosh, I'm trying to do this with my glasses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Glasses are sexy, by the way.
They absolutely are. When you see Marilyn Monroe reading books in her glasses, oh my god.
Why
do you think I wear them every
That's
time
what
I'm on?
breaks my heart. I would have been good for Marilyn. She was an intellectual.
You think she?
She loved books. She was very well read. Why was she with Arthur Miller? Right?
Yeah.
He's the playwright, right? And I remember reading that she had said she was going to be with Arthur Miller when she was like 19 because she loved his plays. Right, reading the plays, right?
Right.
And I was like, Arthur Miller's like, I just won the lotto. What is
I
this?
know, right? He's like
geeky, nerdy, good nobody guy. I got Marilyn Monroe chasing me. All right.
Yeah, I don't think anybody appreciated what she really had to offer, and she was an intelligent woman, and it's a shame.
Certainly, after her death, what happened is what happens to a lot of people that die before their time, when they're in their prime. She became a legend, and now we're talking about her.
Yeah, how many years later, and she's still.
And if she lived and continued to make movies and whatever, and then just died several years ago, then we would have been bummed out. But it wouldn't be the legend that it is today, like Steve McQueen, and Elvis.
But that's the thing is same with James Dean, all of that. It's the archetypes destroy you. They're overwhelming. They're overwhelming. I mean, these things come in, and the vessel can't handle it. It breaks, and that's what people do not understand about the pain of artists. Like Vincent van Gogh, he channeled something that is one of some of the greatest artistic archetypes of all time, right? And it destroyed him.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes being a genius isn't all what is cracked up to be. But I'm wondering if that's why a lot of people tend to say, I saw Elvis, I saw Marilyn, because they're so iconic, and you want them to live on because you just admired them so much. You idolize them.
They want to be part of that legend. They want to touch the grace of Graceland. They want to touch the archetype of Norma Jean and Marilyn Monroe. It's very true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I mean, that's because these are archetypes. They're part of the collective unconscious. They are part of us, right? That's why are people still, we're looking at Ana de Armas. She's channeling Marilyn Monroe. Maybe not no one's going to perfectly channel it like Norma Jean did, right?
Mm-hmm. Ana de Armas is learning the lines and then being possessed by something that can.
Yeah, and she's doing it to the effect that her vessel can handle. Like, look, I've got friends of mine who are spirit channelers, right? Who are people that go into trance, and then a spirit speaks through them and they give psychic predictions, whatever. Mm-hmm. And that can freak a lot of people out. I've sat through their sessions. I know something's happening to them. I know they're not, because they'll say to me, people think I'm play acting, right? Like, no, this Native American spirit, I'm actually gone. I don't remember any of it. I go in, I basically, when it comes in, I black out. When it's over, I wake up and I have to hear recording the session because I have no idea what came out of my mouth. Right?
I've heard that.
I witnessed it, and I believe that is true. I don't believe this person that I saw it with, who I know very well, is lying that they're channeling something, but that's what it is. And that they're channeling this Native American spirit that a lot of channelers came to connect to, like but it's probably going to all of them, just like Norman, Marilyn is showing up in all these people, right?
So, I know. That'd be something.
One day Kamran Pasha will be an archetype, but probably not. Whatever.
So someday I could be sitting here laking to you, and all of a sudden I break out into Marilyn.
The thing is, Latinas are a race of natural archetypes. The Latina is an archetype. It is a total archetype. That's one of the reasons I'm trying to do this Latinx thing, because the archetype is scary. It's too powerful. It's too powerful. The female sensuality of the Latina woman is very powerful.
And going back to Elvis, absolutely what he did, pushing the boundaries in every way, every time, from when he first started recording to when he became famous and beyond. It's incredible that he also took on this archetype, of something that had not existed up until then. He was the first person to be Elvis,
Well,
just
he's the
like
first one,
Andy
not just Elvis,
Kaufman
he
was the
rock
first
star.
person to be
He
an
created the
Elvis
rock star.
impersonator.
Yeah, I mean, he created the rock star, and Elvis is the pinnacle of the rock star, right? He's the creator of the. I mean, that's one of the things I'm learning about this book is that, as I think Mick Jagger said, no, it wasn't Mick Jagger. It was it was one of the Beatles said before Elvis there was nothing, right? It was John Lennon. John Lennon said that. John Lennon, because that he inspired the Beatles. They sat around watching Elvis movies as teenagers and saw girls screaming wildly when Elvis would come on to scream, and they're like, oh, I want to do that. And then they experienced the archetype because then they had the same hysteria when they did the Beatles, right?
And when they toured in the States, they went to Graceland on a whim and met Elvis and hung out. And he had a bass with him at the time, was watching TV, and they just sat around and talked, and then they jammed. Yeah. And then they left.
Yeah.
So they got a cool Elvis experience.
I don't have a lot of time left because unfortunately I got to get ready for my thing. But Gill, people are asking about how you got into the paranormal. So
I was just going to say, Joe was asking about that.
Yeah, I just started out when my mom took me to the library as soon as I could read. I for some reason went right to the paranormal section and just checked out books on the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and UFOs and psychic phenomena. Hans Holzer. He was actually going to write the foreword to my book Kansas Ghosts, which ironically never materialized.
But so you actually met this guy? You actually hung out with Hans Holzer?
No, he I had a phone call with Hans Holzer.
Okay, well that's more than I've had. That's great.
Yeah, but the book that he was going to write the foreword to never happened, so he never wrote the foreword. But it was still interesting to be on the phone with one of my heroes because I'd read just about every book he'd ever written, and that's a lot. He had written like close to 100 books about ghosts mostly, and for some reason I outgrew everything except for psychic phenomena because I'm a sensitive, UFOs, and Bigfoot. And all the rest of it is still kind of at a low frequency hum, but those are the ones that stood out until today, that still are interesting to me, that I pursue and experience, and I don't know why. It was just something that interested me from a very young age.
I think we all get into it for different reasons. Like you were introduced to it by experience, and so was I, and you were into it for the books and stuff. I think in the end, basically, we are all kind of searching for still answers. I don't think there's ever going to be a closure on that. There's never going to be a definite, yes, we have this scientific proof. No, we don't have scientific. There's always going to be an argument for and against it. But I think that's what I think to me, it's like the universe wants you to be curious and to always search for answers and thirst for the knowledge. And if we knew everything, what would there be left?
Well, see, that's the interesting thing about it, is that the more our scientific advancement makes the world smaller and we understand more, then what we called the paranormal becomes smaller because we start to understand more of these. So actually, in the future, at some point, it may be the case that the paranormal, the things that are unknown to us, that are occult, that are hidden from us, right, become visible. Yeah. You never know.
Well, the thing is this, I would suggest it's inherent to the fabric of the universe, right? Which is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, right? Which is one of the first principles of quantum physics, is that the universe has a level of unknowability inherent to its existence, right? You can, one of the shocking things that discovered quantum physics, that Heisenberg himself, one of the early quantum physicists, 20th century, discovered, was that on the subatomic level, you can only figure out one of two things. You can only figure out where a particle is, or how fast it is moving. You cannot figure out both at the same time, because the experiment you need to figure out where the particle is, stops its movement. So you don't know how fast it's going. And the experiment you need to know how fast it's going prevents you from knowing where it ever is at any given moment, because you're measuring speed, not position, right? So it's
And then
impossible.
there's the observer effect.
Yeah, the observer. So you can't know. So that is how God, infinite consciousness, created this universe to always have mystery, because that's why we have this concept of faith. The idea, and I think we have two kinds of extremists when discussing faith. We have what I call sort of the materialist extremist versus the religious fanatic. And I've been the religious fanatic, so I at least understand that perspective. Both want religion, or define religion as certainty. And so the materialist atheist will say, obviously the stuff isn't real, right? And it's self-evidently not real, right? Mm-hmm. And a religious fanatic will say,
it's unfalsifiable, right?
Yeah, mm-hmm. and the religious fanatic will say, I don't have faith, I know, right? I don't have faith. I know this is true. I don't need any but the reality is, as a believer, I'll tell you, there is a leap of faith. There is the unknowable, and God has set that in motion, whether it's in religion, whether it's in paranormal, whether it's in our day-to-day lives. Mm-hmm. That keeps us on our toes. But there's no way to escape it. I want you think you know everything. You are inherently, in an illusion, because you can't.
Yeah, that's an illusion itself. Absolutely. I don't think we ever will. And that's okay. I mean, I think it's good to keep it looking. And we all kind of get into looking for the answers for what, again, different reasons. Like, I find that most people who've lost somebody that they really, really love are really going to want to know if they're still there, if they're really listening to them, and they're always looking for a sign or, something. So they tend to be, very curious about it and go into it. Joe was asking me what got me into the paranormal. I think it all came from, my mom used to tell us stories of things that happened to her. And she told me this stuff when I was quite young, and it scared the shinola out of me. But, she told me about things that happened to her. And then I became curious as well, because moms don't lie to you. Why would they lie to you, right? So she told me about a picture, or she went across this house that was abandoned across from her, and that there was a picture of this. I don't remember what it was. It was a picture in there, and she liked the picture. She brought it with her. And my grandmother,
she took it out of the house.
She took it out of the house, and she took it with her. And my grandma was like, "Oh, no, that's that. Yeah, put that back." And my mom's like, "But I like it." And my grandma's like, "You know what?" My grandma had the sense, and she's like, "No, there's something wrong with this, and you need to send it back." So my mom put it back. And then my grandma wakes up my mom, and she's like, "I thought I told you to put this picture back." My mom's like, "But I did." And she's like, "Then why is it back here?" And then my grandmother took it, and she took it back, and it ended up back. It kept coming back to the house.
Well, now the door.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she always had my mom always had a black crow that would follow her all the time, like protect her and follow her all the time. And I thought that was bizarre, but she would tell me stories, so many stories that would just it would scare me, but at the same time it also made me curious, because I was that kid that you don't want, that one that's always, how come, why, how, why, and my mom's like, oh my god,
Jesus have a belly button? Why does Jesus have a belly button?
Right. Why is Jesus always on a toast?
Well, why wouldn't he? He had an umbilical cord, right? He was born from Mary, right?
Right.
That's true.
But I guess people would ask that question. Look, that's the thing. I think you both revealed that these things. Every one of us has our own unique journey into the paranormal, because it's all based on our life experiences, right? And but that's what's wonderful, is that this strange thing that we cannot define, that by definition is unknowable, each of us experience in our own ways, and brings us together to talk about it. And that's that. I think arguing about religion, politics, and philosophy divides people. Yeah. But when they share their supernatural, paranormal experiences, it brings them all together.
Everybody's buddies, right? Right.
Because you have people left wing, but I saw a ghost. You saw a ghost. I saw a ghost. And suddenly they're buddies. Because
that's where the non-dualism kind of comes in too, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I am losing my voice here, guys. And I think you have to go, Cameron.
Yeah, I'm actually getting ready. I've got to take soon.
I'm actually
But
going to do that hour, cut it off here at the hour because, as you can hear, my kind of losing myself here. Sorry. So,
well, maybe Elvis will come in your dreams tonight, heal you.
yeah, that would be
that'd
good.
be a hunk of burn voice box.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Joe wanted you to do your hunk of something
Uh,
or other.
I have left the building. Thank you very much.
Oh my
Imagine you
goodness.
have an archetype of random things like that. Your voice becomes an archetype that lives on generation after
Right?
generation.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's just unmistakable. But yeah, you know what? We went around today, but that's what makes it fun, though. I like that where we can bring up different things, and so
But it always comes full circle. That's the wonderful
it
thing about
does.
this particular video when we do this. Magically, every time I've always found the random topics all connect.
They do. They do. That. I mean, I did not assume we would be talking about Elvis tonight, but we did, and it was funny because he was on my mind earlier this evening, and here we are talking about him. Yes, I'm
And
gonna.
maybe that's not all he was on, if you get my drift, and I think I do.
Yeah, I'm not gonna deny that I had a nice little crush on him. I sit there and stare at his pictures all day. He is a looker. Yeah, I'm gonna do some honey and tea and stuff
Yeah,
in my voice.
Yeah.
my a Sufi mystic in West Africa told me have honey, tea, ginger every night, and you'll never get sick. He was like 90 years old.
Really?
He
Wow.
looked like he was in his early 60s.
Wow.
Said, I've ever been sick in my
Yeah,
life.
I'm definitely gonna do that thing where I shut my mouth and
For some
just
reason, my singer in a couple of my bands before the show, because it was a punk rock band, right? It was like a thrash band, so he was screaming basically. But he would drink milk and take Skittles before the show to coat his throat.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
all this
milk
peanut
does.
butter and what was it? Peanut butter and what was it? Peanut butter and something on the sandwiches.
Banana,
Peanut butter and banana.
peanut butter
Yeah,
banana.
fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Hey,
much.
I had some fried plantains a few days ago. A friend of mine from West Africa made them in their home. I was like, I'm just going to eat this for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, oh my god! I mean, this was like better than ice cream.
I'm gonna have to try that too. Oh, you
And
know
don't
what?
forget that Elvis invented the peanut butter and banana sandwich, and the Colonel made him fry it.
No,
Thank
Yeah.
we're holding up. We're hoping our lovely lady here is losing her voice. So
No,
thank
it's
you.
all right. Thank you so
for
much,
having me here.
guys.
Hopefully we'll do this again in a month. This is all just dependent on my own schedule because I've got
Yeah.
some stuff going on. But I really do love this. I've been, as some people know, I've been a little wary about going back onto YouTube to talk about Hollywood stuff. It's a very strange environment right now, and
Yeah,
I just want to. This kind of conversation really activates me.
yeah,
And like I said, it brings people together. I don't want to argue going on YouTube and arguing about whether this show is good or that show is good.
right.
It divides, but this brings people together, and I love
It
it.
does. That's why I like it. I think I have some other things going on, so I want you to enjoy your schedule because I think Joe, our producer, says he's got some other stuff lined up for me, so I'll give you some time.
And I do want to plug
Refresh.
something real quick.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
we are going to be getting together on my channel on the 29th for Into the Fringe with Cameron
That's
and
right.
hopefully with Maria co-hosting. And we are going to do a 2-hour show once her voice has healed
I'm like 2 hours.
about the
wow.
paranormal. And we're going to talk
right.
about the jinn and some Sufi mysticism. And I think it's going to be a great time. So stay tuned for that.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm going to plug my own thing. I'm going to put it in the
Absolutely.
So I have my Patreon, which is really the only place people can see me nowadays. So that is where I am talking about. A lot of people liked my Hollywood commentary,
Mhm.
and that's where I'm talking about it. I think Cardinal's on there, Maria, you're on there, and I'm pretty probably more blunt about it than I am because it's private. You have to go
Yeah.
to the tab.
Yeah,
Yeah, you really-
I
But I've been
consume
pretty-
it daily. I mean,
Yeah.
Every
There's a lot
day
of
you're-
I take it daily,
putting stuff
because
in.
I'm subscribed to a few Patrons. I'm like, hey, so I'm giving you money. Where's my post?
right. I know. I
Month.
know.
Where's my post? Right?
Right.
I'm like, take my.
I
So
know.
I try to write at least once a day, maybe multiple times a day.
No,
But
you
I put a lot of.
you really put a lot into it. So anybody who does join, they're getting their money's worth definitely.
absolutely.
So I'm not there yet. I don't have that much to share yet, but at some point maybe. But anyway, I'm gonna let you all enjoy the rest of your evening while I go rest my voice. Thank you, Joe, for being here to produce tonight. Terry, Tracy will be back with me here at some point. Miss Netter, thank you so much for wrenching for me tonight. And for those of you, Miss Sherry, she I don't know if you saw her post. Everybody, she couldn't be here tonight. She had a loss in the family. So if you pop by her Twitter and give your condolences, that would be so nice. And Miss Netter has plugged all the channels of everybody who's come in here. I've had some people on my Twitter say hi to, but now I can't even think who they are, Cameron. So I'm sorry about that. And they said they missed you there. I said, well, yeah, I don't know. No, he'll be back, so you might want to have to join his Patreon.
All these lovely ladies on Twitter, and that can't do that no more.
But thank you guys so much. I need to put my glasses on, so I'm making sure I'm pushing the right button.
Thanks
it's a Marilyn Monroe reading thing. Kind of
Here we go.
The sexy glasses.
The glasses. Yeah. I have like 5 different glasses. One of them really makes me look like I don't know, like.
Oh.
It's just the two of us now.
It is two of us. I don't know, but it's all good. So
apparently
I guess
she had to go.
Close out the show. I guess we're gonna close out the show. We lost our.
That's queen. Okay. I'll stay in here and entertain the audience.
Well,
till she gets
on
back.
That note, thank you, Maria. I know you're probably somewhere in the back, but thank you, Cardinal. Thank you for everyone who watched.
Good to see you, Cameron.
Sorry.
Oh, you came back. We lost you.
It's like, what happened?
You ghosted yourself.
I ghosted myself. Well, thanks again. Let me go ahead and end the show. Thanks for everybody. Have a great day. Be good to each other. And take care. We will see you next time. And I don't remember where. Mm-hmm.